It's no secret that X-Men 97 has great reviews from critics and audiences. It's reported to be in the top 3 of Disney Plus original series in terms of the views. And honestly, I wish it had that #1 spot instead of Percy Jackson TV series. I did enjoy the Percy Jackson show, and I felt like it was a solid adaptation from the book, but X-Men 97 is something special, and it unlocked a level of excitement I haven't felt in years. So much so that I can't wait for season 2. I need to see more of the X-Men, so I decided to get their comic books instead. I have read comics before, but if you can tell from my past videos, superhero content mainly consisted of DC comic books. It was a good run of me reading the comic books until, what was that storyline? Heroes in Crisis, I believe. That came out like 2019, I believe. The storyline didn't really work out well for me. It was like a big major event, and then you had Batman Who Laughs, and they kept overusing that character too, and then life happened, and so I just slowly dropped out of reading these stories of characters that I loved. So I never really dived heavy into the Marvel, let alone X-Men lore. But this show right here, it just speaks to you. If not to you, then at least to me. As someone who enjoys this type of stuff, seeing the love and care these writers put into X-Men 97 and keeping me on my toes each episode and sticking to landing, I have to give it props. I watched like an hour recap video of the 90s X-Men before the show, and even though I might not have all the connections and minor references from that show, X-Men 97 does a fantastic job of like relaying that information in the previous show, but doesn't drag during its current season. I hear from X-Men fans that the best thing about X-Men comic books is since there's so many members, it creates a variety of fan favorites. So you talk to one person, they'll probably say Cyclops is their favorite character. Another might say Wolverine or Storm or even Nightcrawler. And to be honest with you, Nightcrawler might be my favorite X-Men so far. And I won't lie, man, Magneto, he's that guy. He is. My favorite episode of this entire season was episode 2, I believe, when Magneto was talking to the Congress and Storm jumped in front of a gun that takes away like mutants' powers. And seeing Magneto so frustrated, he took the Senate members all the way to space, and just when I think Magneto is gonna end them, he tells them he's trying so very hard to be the person Xavier envisioned him to be, and pretty much Magneto tells them not to test him. And my heart was like pounding that entire scene because this man Magneto is an example on why you have to leave certain people alone. If you push them too far, next thing you know, you're on a diss track, getting disrespected, and now you're screwed. I won't hold you. This might be recency bias. I don't care. This is basically an appreciation video, so, you know, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. We are witnessing peak fiction right now. I'm so glad this season focused on other characters besides Wolverine. I love the guy, but as an outsider, it always felt like X-Men to me was basically Wolverine with a supporting cast instead of an actual team. Maybe in the comics, it is way different. Now, speaking of comic books, I do need some recommendations. I plan to do a deep dive into X-Men reading before season 2 comes out. So put in the comments the best X-Men stories, regardless how old it is. I know X-Men's been around for decades, so just give me your best ones that you really like. Tell me your favorite characters and the stories that really show why you like these characters so much. Now, Nightcrawler and Storm are my top 2 favorites right now because of this season, but that can change, you know, once I dive into the comics. I was so mad at myself at the end of the season because I really wish I got the Easter eggs and the name references. The last episode had the X-Men scattered across the timeline. You had Rogue, Magneto, Professor Xavier, and Nightcrawler meeting some guy with some cool face tattoos. I think his name was like En Sabanor, and I just googled it, and it's Apocalypse? What in the world is Apocalypse doing in ancient Egypt and in present-day Genosha? And now, Jean and Scott meet a young Cable in the future, and I really wish I knew the significance of Clan Ascani, because when they said the name, it had this pause when they said the name as if it was like this big reveal to like X-Men fans, like, what, they're doing this type of storyline? But I really wanted to get extra hype, but I didn't know what it meant, and I'm frustrated about that. But you know what? It's okay, because I'll read some of the comics, then circle back to this ending. Speaking of the future, I may not be a heavy Marvel reader, okay? But I wonder in season 2 if we'll meet Kang the Conqueror, who I believe is part of Reed Richards and Sue Storm's family tree. If they introduce Kang, I wonder which timeline he'll be in, because he's a time traveler, right? So he could be in ancient Egypt, the present day. He could be in the future. Who knows? But seeing how they have no problem world building Marvel characters, I expect him to at least be in season 2. Also, props to the show for including Marvel characters, expanding the world but not getting crazy with including them into the X-Men storyline. They got my boy T'Chaka in the last episode, and I won't lie to you, I do wish it was T'Challa because it just makes more sense. I don't know why they're not having T'Challa in here. I don't know if there's like some mandate going on that after Chadwick Boseman's unfortunate passing that they can't have T'Challa in any iteration of Marvel content anymore. I hope that's not the case because I think T'Challa is a really great character with a lot of good stories to dive into, and I think it's a shame that the unfortunate passing of Chadwick is causing Marvel to not want to continue on with the character in different iterations. The MCU version, I can kind of get it because it's a very tricky subject matter, but in the animated series at least, come on, like that. You couldn't have T'Challa in there. Either way, seeing the Black Panther in this animation style made me heavily, and I mean heavily, want a Black Panther animated series. Probably based on like the best Black Panther run that I've read, and it's by Christopher Priest. It was made in like the early 2000s. I think a lot of people will say that's like the gold standard of Black Panther in terms of characterization and Wakanda and stuff like that. If that's the case, I would highly want that right now. If you want to know what other animated comic book shows I think would also need an X-Men 97 treatment, I highly recommend Troy Aboyo's 17's video. It's called Shows That Deserve the X-Men 97 Treatment. He's really good. I love a lot of his contents. So I'll leave a link in the description and a card on the top right for you guys to see it. But yeah, man, X-Men 97 was such a fantastic first season. I can't wait to dive deep into the lore and to all these characters. I want to find more Nightcrawler-centric stories. I don't know if there is. I hope there is. I would like to dive into like some Storm and Nightcrawler-centric stories to get to understand them better. So if you guys know any of them in particular, definitely put them down in the comments. I'll definitely love to check them out. Definitely support your local comic book stores and don't be afraid to provide your own thoughts from this season down below. And I'll catch y'all next time.